Hey there guys, it's Metro, and today we're taking a look at the top 5 changes coming with Legion that you need to be aware of before the expansion launches. Now there's a lot changing with Legion, obviously, so you need to be aware of a lot of things, but these are 5 things that I think even people who have looked into the changes and have played a little bit may still not fully understand. I've been making videos and streaming for a long time now, and there's a lot of people who still, at least one or two, if not five, all 5 of these things, they don't fully understand and they don't know. And honestly, if you don't know any of these things, you're really going to be surprised when Legion comes out. So let's get right into it. Number 5 on the list here is buffs and utility, all right? So there are no more group-wide buffs. Things like Arcane Intellect, things like even the Hunter pet buffs, right? Mark of the Wild, those things are all gone. Your class no longer brings them. And I've seen many people in dungeons say like, rebuff please. There are no more buffs, guys. They're not in the game anymore. So that is going to change things a lot for even raid composition, but mostly smaller group composition. There's also no more utility things like Ancestral Guidance, Gorfine's Grasp especially. Those two have been removed. 2 of the bigger ones, AG and Gorfine's, were pretty much testament to why 5-man CM groups were based around the classes they were based around. Obviously other reasons there as well, but one of the reasons that the game has to do this is because they need to be able to focus more on actual DPS balance. And I think they're actually going to have that really for the first time ever. I don't think there's ever been true DPS spec balance at any point in the game, which is a really nice step forward. So just be aware that your class, especially as a damage dealing spec, is probably only going to bring one minor utility. Things like the wind walking speed aura. That's still one that is in the game, but nothing crazy like AG being able to heal everybody, you know, constantly healing everybody when it's time for high AoE. Now, number 4 here, okay? Class changes is a big deal. A lot of rotational changes. You know, people talk about the prune and all these other things, class fantasy. All right, these are a big change for this expansion, and you're really going to have to get used to it. So the best advice I can give you is to take a look at it now. You may not have the tools to do so. You know, if the PTR is not working out for you, then you know, and the beta isn't an option for you, you're probably not going to have a lot of time to test this. But you do still have the pre-patch, which will be coming soon. Probably by the time a lot of you watch this video, it will already be out. So take a moment to take a deep breath and say, the class has changed a lot. Do I still like it? All right, because a lot of specs have changed significantly. So now is the time to try new things. I cannot stress this enough. I don't know how many people I've talked to who, like, you know, Siler, for example, contributor to this channel. He played Enhancement for so long, guys, so long. He's been playing Enhancement for, I think, 2 full expansions now, and he loved it. But guess what? They changed them very significantly. And yet now a lot of new people love Enhancement. I've not seen so much support for a spec in so long. It's crazy. So many people are like, I love the new Enhance. But Siler doesn't like it despite playing it for 2 years. So he's switching to Monk. You know what I mean? So these are the changes you need to be aware of. You need to, don't go into the expansion thinking you're going to play your class without testing it, and then you're going to burn yourself out because you actually don't like the changes. All right? So that's a big deal. Now, number 3. All right? Number 3. There we go. Number 3. Healer tank role. All right, these are important topics to discuss here. I see a lot of confusion, especially spread by other WoW YouTubers. A lot of confusion here, okay, guys? So let's explain the healer and tank roles, especially in smaller group content, but even in raids as well. Tanks are going to be a lot more active than they were in the past, especially going back all the way to the beginning, right? People say, oh, tanking has gotten a lot easier over the years. Well, that's simply not true, all right? Now you are a lot more active and you have less powerful mitigations, so you have to play a lot smarter. You're going to actually rely on healers, and because of that, healers are going to be a lot more flexible, and especially in raids. There's going to be some extra utility added to a lot of healing specs as well. They're still going to have their main things like Trank, but there's going to be new types of utility, like especially Holy Paladin, having a lot of instant cast abilities, and then the aura tree, you know, the talents with the 3 different auras. These are really cool changes to healers, and they kind of take away that these healers are a niche healer. They only situation in this that they can be strong as, you know, and then all these things about like paladins being pure tank healers. Those things are, it's going to be a lot more flexible, okay? But the main change that you guys need to be aware of is that both healers and tanks do a lot more damage baseline than they have in the past, especially healers. This is a very, very, very big deal. People don't seem to understand how big of a deal this is, right? Especially in raids, but you know, 5-mans anywhere that you're doing competitive content, guys. If you aren't interested in contributing damage, then you need to reconsider playing these roles, all right? The days where tanks just charged in and held threat and that was it, those days are gone, all right? As a tank, you need to contribute to the dungeon in more than just that. You need to be able to top up your DPS. You need to be able to elevate the pace of the dungeon. And the best ways of doing that are as we just discussed, all right? And it's the same with the healer, okay? Elevating the pace by staying ahead of the group, keeping your mana stable throughout the entire dungeon so nobody ever needs to stop, and doing as much damage as you possibly can are insanely important, all right? So if you're going to play a healer or a tank and all you're going to do is just worry about your own self, and as a healer, you're going to just spam heals on people who are at full health because, oh, that's my role at healer. It's like, no, you need to start doing damage, guys, all right? So I think a lot of people are going to be in for a big surprise when they go into Mythic Plus and they're basically, you know, they're not maximizing their damage in the tank and healer role, okay? Now, number 2 here, right? This one is also really important. This is an entirely new idea for the max level zones of Suramar here, okay? Usually we get Tanan, place like that where it's just very different, right? This time we have a single long story progression. There's a lot of different little sub-stories in the zone. It's a very interesting zone. It's gorgeous looking, very large, and they make a lot of great use out of the space they have in that zone, all right? But the zone and the Nightfallen actually comes with an attunement, 2 specifically for 5-man dungeons, Court of Stars, and the Archway. All right, they are attuned behind rep and progression through the zone, as they are part of the main storyline that actually leads up to the Nighthold raid. So these changes are actually really, really big for Legion and zones in general, guys, all right? You know, Tanan, the zone featured the raid, but the things you did in the zone didn't feel like you were actually leading up to the raid. So the 2 months where maybe even longer where there's no Nighthold raid, you know, while you're waiting for these things to open up, you're going to be progressing through this story. The Court of Stars and the Archway are going to be paramount to it. So you're going to see characters and lore figures in this zone, and hopefully you'll have a lot to do. I've been playing the beta a lot, and I still have not gotten even halfway through the Suramar quest lines. So I think this is a great step moving forward. If they continue to do this with zones that feature raids, it feels a lot like the Isle of Thunder. I think that's really the only great comparison we could make right now. The Isle of Thunder sort of had this, you know, especially with like the way it opened in the segments. So that's really cool. And this is a great addition to the game, guys. But just be aware of those attunements, all right? Also, those dungeons are mythic only, all right? And it's because of the attunements. If they were doable on heroic, nobody would ever do them, because by the time you get these attunements, you're going to be geared past heroics, all right? And the biggest, the number 1 change coming in Legion, which is only a few months away now, guys, it's something everybody needs to understand, is there is an absolute ton of progression paths in the video game now. A lot of people don't seem to understand this. They think, oh, you know, whatever. People say there's nothing to do in the game now, man. Well, guess what? That is changing 100%. Things you're going to have to progress through. Let's go through them. Artifact power and relics for the artifact. Definitely going to be some of the most important things your character is going to have to progress through. Outside of actual gear, this is the best way to improve your character, all right? Then, of course, there's gear itself, which you can now get from world quests. Dungeons have new Titan Forge. In fact, I actually posted on the forums, guys, and my thread got a bunch of comments from Ian Hazakostas, the designer then who created all these ideas here. So look into Titan Forged and dungeons in general. There's also legendaries, which you're going to need to progress through. All right, they can drop from anywhere, where the higher difficulty giving a more chance to drop them. You're going to want all of them, honestly. The more the better, because you can only use 1 at the start, and then you'll eventually unlock 2 in the order hall, all right, where you're going to need to get resources for the progression, and of course, you're going to get artifact power from all this. So all of these things kind of mingle into each other. Like I said, you'll get the legendaries from completing the order hall stuff. And once you can equip 2 legendaries, guys, your characters, you're going to feel it. So these are all really important things. And I think the summary here is that This means that world quests, anything that gives gear basically, is always relevant because you can get artifact power from it. You can get gear from it that can be Titan Forge all the way up to 895. I'm telling you, read that article. In fact, I'll put it in the description below. All right, guys, it's a good read. You can get the legendaries from it, which are going to be insane damage boosts. They're going to change the playstyle of the class for a lot of reasons. And then, of course, a lot of the order hall and profession stuff takes you into these dungeons. So just absolute multifaceted response to all the issues that people said about Warlords of Draenor. There's no content, there's nothing to do. Well, guess what, guys? Now you always have something to do. You can always do dungeons and get an upgrade. You can always get more artifact power. So thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions about this expansion, any of the top 5 things we discussed here, let me know. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy because it's going to be a really, really fun expansion.